Hi there, my name's Gabrielle. I'm from Advanced Finance Solutions.
And I'm Anita, I'm from Advanced Finance Solutions as well.
And this is Finance Friday, where we answer all your questions to do with finance.
And this Friday, we've decided we're answering questions for first home buyers. So all the questions today are relating to first home buyers. And we posted a little thing on our Facebook and sent an email out to our database asking questions, and we're about to answer them. And thanks again to everyone that's sent in questions. We love it. Thank you.
So the first question that we're going to start off with is, where do we start? What do we need to have in order before we apply for a loan?
Okay, so when you're doing a pre-approval for your first investment property or first owner-occupied property, it can be a little daunting. The best place to start is to come in and see us, and what we do is we organise everything that you need to be able to proceed with an application. So the typical things would be identification, income information, copies of 3-month statements on your savings account so the banks can see your record of savings. If you're renting, a rental ledger to show how much rent you pay and whether you pay on time. And also a list of any debts that you have, current credit cards, statements on things like that to show that you're paying on time and doing things correctly. Those are the type of things that you would need to get your pre-approval started.
The second question we're going to answer is, how much deposit do you generally need?
Okay, so the deposit on a property is generally 5%. So 5% of the purchase price is how much you need for the actual deposit. And then of course you're going to need things like funds to cover stamp duty, legal fees, lots of other costs. So generally I say to clients between 5 and 6% of the purchase price you need to have saved up as well. So 10 or 11% of the purchase price is how much you need in total in most instances.
How much deposit is required so that you don't need to pay mortgage insurance?
Okay, so lender's mortgage insurance is payable on a loan whenever you're borrowing more than 80% of the value of the property. So if you're going to want to avoid mortgage insurance, you need a 20% deposit, plus you need enough to cover the stamp duty, legals, things like that. So if you're buying most properties, you probably need about 26% of the purchase price to avoid the mortgage insurance. So it's a much, much larger deposit, as opposed to when you're paying mortgage insurance, you only need that 5% deposit.
How much is the First Home Owners Grant?
First Home Buyers Grant at the moment in New South Wales is $15,000, so it's a big amount that it goes towards the purchase. But keep in mind, it's only available for brand new properties or house and land packages, so buying land and building. It's not available for established homes. So if you're buying a property that's already been lived in, which is what most people sort of tend to buy for their first home, there's no First Home Buyers Grant. So that's something to really keep in mind. The other thing is that there is exemption from stamp duty on purchases of brand new properties for most first home buyers in New South Wales. So yeah, it's a big advantage if you're buying something brand new.
If you already own an investment property but not your first home, are you still qualified for the grant?
Okay, that's a tricky question, because what happens is it depends on the date that you bought that investment property. But you may still qualify. If you go onto the Office of State Revenue website, there is a list of questions on there that you can work out whether you would qualify or not. But it's possible. It is possible.
How much do you generally require as a deposit for your first investment property?
Investment property is probably about the same as your first home, so 5% deposit, but most of the time with investment lending, they won't let you capitalise the mortgage insurance on top of the loan, so you may need a little bit more for an investment purchase, so probably about 5% deposit and about 8% towards the cost, so a little bit more than your first property, but similar amounts.
Well, what is land tax, and how does it affect buying your first or second investment?
Okay, so land tax is a tax that's applicable in New South Wales for people that have multiple properties. So your principal place of residence is not affected. And then I've got a little sheet here because I couldn't remember the exact figure. Okay, so the land tax threshold is $432,000. So keeping in mind that you can have your own property, and then the land portion of your other properties, once it reaches $432,000, there would be a land tax that you need to pay on an annual basis. And that is worked out on a percentage. So for first home buyers, it's probably not going to affect you. But if you end up with multiple properties and multiple properties held in New South Wales, that's probably something you're going to have to discuss with your accountant at tax time.
Can you buy a house without a deposit of sorts?
The only way now that you can buy a property without a deposit is if you've got family members that are willing to help. So There's what's called family pledge, and that's where they're going to guarantee 20% of your loan. So instead of putting down a deposit, your family member goes, it's more or less like the old guarantor system, but instead of guaranteeing the whole loan, they're just guaranteeing 20% or a small portion of the loan for you, and that way you don't have to have a deposit. That's really the only way of having no deposit at all. Of course, if you have no savings and a family member's prepared to gift you the money, that's one way of doing it as well. So there are a couple of ways around it, but you've really got to have family or someone that's there to sort of gift you the deposit to be able to do something, because the banks no longer do 100% loans.
And that finishes our questions for today. If you would like to post your questions, any questions that you have on Facebook, or even just email us, then we will sure enough answer your questions.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.